Hello, and welcome to another episode of The End of the Search. This one I call it Dealing with the Relative. Not the relatives, the world of the relative seeming world. This is a question somebody asked me, and remember, these videos always point to the fact that I am. Have nothing to do with the world of appearances, because what we are is, and that cannot be even talked about. However, questions do arise that even if someone understands where this is pointing to, they still get caught in the seeming aspect of the relative and they ask questions because there seems to be a confusion there. So this is one of those questions, and I will address the question from the relative space, so to speak, in a way that it's addressing an issue the same way anybody would address it, but addressed consciously, so you can see the difference of the consequence. And anyhow, so I'll read the question and you'll see what you think. It says, "Hi Nick, how are you? I hope you're doing well. Nick, speaking from a relative perspective, when you are experiencing situations where you're normally be told or feel that your work, your time, or whatever it may be is not valued, what do you do then?" Okay, first of all, what I'm seeing here is either could be seeking of approval or expectation. Well, how do you deal with this on a relative level? It's very simple. I do the work. I don't have any expectation whether you like it or not. I'm not asking for your approval. I'm just simply doing the work because that's just what happens. If the work that I do is not valued for whatever the reason is, that's fine. I just go somewhere else. There's no point of staying there if my work or whatever I'm doing is not valued. I mean, if I have an opportunity to do something else or move somewhere else, I'll do so. That's fine. If the person wants to argue on saying this work is awful and everything, well, that's fine. It's you're listening to someone who's very hurt, who have probably an issue with him or herself, and therefore is looking where to project their anger and their fear. And once again, I don't have to stay there. I simply say, okay, well, I understand that whatever I have to offer may not be of your liking. And then you move on. Nothing happened. Is the innocent child of the creation that is expressing itself that way, but because you're not believing the content of the mind, you don't find yourself arguing with it. Again, common sense. If you feel like your work is not appreciated, then move on. That's all. But you don't carry any energy, you don't carry any resentment or anything. You just see that people behave the way they do. That's what they do. But at the same time, you know that they are not doing it. It's just part of their conditioning. You see, they're not the doers. So again, someone with this comprehension, with this understanding, with this awareness, if you want to call it, I don't know what name to use, it simply moves through life, but again, has no expectations of how things are going to be received or so. They just do whatever they're supposed to be doing. If I create a piece of music, and somebody doesn't like it, doesn't mean that it's a bad piece of music. It implies that that person doesn't like whatever I am creating in that moment. You see, if I do a particular work or a paint job or something, assuming I'm painting somebody's house, and the person says I don't like the work or anything, I mean, if I am integrity and I know I did the best I can, and I think it came out okay, but the person may have any issues, that's their stuff. They keep their stuff. You don't carry that stuff with you because you're not letting the mind interpreting the situation and telling you what is right, wrong, it should or shouldn't. You just simply see life happening. Again, once who's conscious is just see how life is unfolding. That's all. It's not making an issue out of anything. Once again, there's no expectations of anything and not seeking of approval. It's just simply observing the journey unfold. The person continues. Because ultimately, it's a situation that cannot be any other way because it's happening. You see, that's when the person is beginning to understand that whatever is happening is what's happening. But you cannot bring yourself to say, enough, that's it. Again, what I just said, yes, I can say, you know what, enough, that's it. My work is not appreciated, but there's not anger in there. There's just basically say, okay, my work is not appreciated. Why? Because there was no expectations at the beginning, and there was no seeking validation. You see, this is just a work that I am doing, and there you go, end of story. And then continues. And not addressing the situation would be rejecting it or applying common sense. Again, not addressing the situation implies suffering. You see, you're addressing the situation, but you're not addressing it with the energy that suggests, how can you dare to say this about my work or whatever? No, the situation is addressed, meaning that I'm addressing the feelings that I'm experiencing first. That is the key, because I'm always upset for the interpretation I have of the situation, not for the situation. That's why there's a beautiful lesson in the Course in Miracles, lesson number 5. I'm never upset for the reasons I think. The mind always gives you a reason as to why am I upset, but in reality the only reason I can be upset is because I forgot who I am. That's it. When you know who you are, you don't get upset. You just see, and if upset happens, that's fine, but it's seen through is what I mean. Because there's another quote in the Course that says, anger is never justified. It doesn't say you don't get angry. If it happens, it happens, the feeling comes up, but you immediately know that, again, I'm never upset for the reasons I think. And consequently, I can rest again, I let the energy move, and that's it. But it has nothing to do with the world of appearances. Because again, the only reason we get upset is because we forget who we are. We think we're this separate entity dealing with others. In reality, it's yourself. That's it. So you're dealing with yourself. So technically, you do the work and you reject yourself. But again, let's keep it simple. If I don't believe the content of the mind, and if I don't go with any expectations or ideas how things should be or whatever, then again, life unfolds, and some may say, hey, great work, and you say, fine, and some may say, awful work, and you say, fine, it makes no difference. And the person continue. On the other hand, seeing as I struggle with this a lot, I could use it to see who else is suffering from this, right? Again, now is when we begin to do the investigation. Who is the one that is suffering? To see if I can find it. And the person continues. But when I ask, I cannot find anyone. It is like when you only understand things intellectually and everything related to the absolute makes sense. With the relative, you're left strolling along. I suppose that when understanding comes, identifying with all of this is simpler. But when it doesn't, it's all very cumbersome. Yeah, again, it's pointing here that it's when you understand this intellectually, I know that I am not the doer, I understand this, but it hasn't been integrated yet. You see? We're pointing to the obvious, so as you put that into practice, again, you're not the doer, so you're not the one choosing to put it into practice. And in the same way, I always say, if the information is coming through, act as if you can actually put it into practice, okay? But as you just put this into practice, then you notice that many of the things that probably used to cause a upsetting or whatever, they seem to drop away on their own. Before, the work was so important, and I want to make sure that I get the approval of people and everything. But then comes along that, I just do the work and I don't have any expectations at all, and life unfolds, you see. And when the person sees that, but when I try to find out who's the one who's upset, I don't find anything. Again, this is investigation of seeing who am I. Am I this individual who's getting upset? Or am I simply the I am, and the feelings and sensations appear in me? See, I cannot find an individual who can actually take ownership of the feelings and the sensations. And that is, again, where the work is going. But in the meantime, while we still believe we're this separate entity, and now we're beginning to be conscious of who we are, well, there could be, there's a transition process in there, and that's fine. It's not a big deal. That's why we've been reminded constantly of the fact that I am. If you don't identify with the content of the mind, what remains is the fact that I am, and this is where this is pointing to. In the I am, there's no issue about if you like my work or not. In the I am, there's no issue with anything because I'm resting as I am, you see? And there's no need to talk about this anymore. Now you see how life unfolds, and your journey will unfold the way it will. And if you do a particular line of work and it's liked, great. If it's not liked, great too. You're not living for the attention, you're not living for the approval, you're simply observing life as it unfolds, and you're simply living. And anyhow, this is the inspiration that came through. I hope it served. And as always, may peace permeate the mind so that love can be extended.